You guessed it, folks. Our newest project has arrived here at the Bimmer barn. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. Now here we are a couple days later, and I'm going to introduce you to my new 2006 325xi wagon. This thing is a beauty, and we picked it up for an amazing deal off of Craigslist. And if you haven't been able to tell by the title and thumbnail of the video yet, we're going to be doing a full 335i conversion using my parts card, and we're going to be building this car out to make it just the most ultimate reliable daily driver with plenty of power but also plenty of space and amenities, being that this is an E90 chassis car, one of the newer 3 Series models that has a ton of features and a ton of cool retrofit opportunities for us to do on this car. Now this swap is going to be one of the coolest ones that we've done on the channel coming up, along with like the E39 M5 wagon, which is very close to being done. We also have the M3 swapped hatchback. And if you know me, you know that I'm a fan of cool BMW swaps, especially when it comes to things that didn't come from factory. So building a 335 wagon is something that we never had here in the States. I think there are a couple of people that actually build them full time here in the States, so you've maybe seen one before at a car show or on Instagram or something like that, but otherwise this is a car that was maybe only available in Europe, and I think it's going to be a really cool build, having all the power from the 335 in this wagon chassis, and we're going to have plenty of opportunities to do cool retrofits, like I said, as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at the wagon, and I'm going to tell you the story of why I got this thing for such a good deal, what's wrong with it, and what some of the work is going to have to be for us to put the 335 swap in, because this unfortunately is not going to be a 100% bolt-in solution. So as I said, this is a 325xi, so it has one of the X-Drive systems, front and rear wheel drive, all-wheel drive, I guess technically. You'll see that I have a battery tender hooked up to it because it is pretty drained, but we'll get into the engine and what's wrong with it mechanically in a second. But again, this is an X-Drive car, so the chassis is a little bit different than a regular rear wheel drive wagon chassis or sedan chassis would be, or any chassis, because the transmission tunnel is bigger to account for the larger transmission and the transfer case. And so that means that we will have to do a little bit of fabrication to build a cross member for the transmission. That's going to be one of the main challenges. As you can see, the car has a great interior, all black leather interior. It's not the M Sport, so we don't have the nice seats or the nice steering wheel, but it is black leather, and we don't have any tears, rips. The headliner is fading, but as you can see, this car has a really cool panoramic sunroof, so it's extra big, but I think we're gonna have to get into repairing the headliner to be able to use that slide there. I'm not sure if it works or not. The car doesn't have any cool options like navigation or iDrive. It is an automatic, but again, great condition. The doors here are in much better condition than the ones from the 335. The seat leather, no tears. And again, it could use some freshening up, some trim pieces that are missing and such, but otherwise this is a great interior car. I could tell by the photos. And here in the trunk, the hood struts work. These are actually really easy to change. They're on the outside, unlike the E39 Touring, which has them on the inside of the trunk. But all these pieces here are kind of a mess because I had to get access to the battery to put it on the tender to slowly charge it up, because the alternator has failed on this car. So let's go take a look at the motor. Here is the motor. This is an N52. It's one of the early model motors, being that it's a 325. I think they had bigger ones available in other years, but this is like a 2006 car, so it's the first year that the E91 chassis came out. You can't really tell from the top here any differences between the rear wheel drive and the X-Drive. So it's going to be a direct bolt-in swap up here as far as like the subframe and the engine placement and hopefully getting the brackets and such is going to be real easy to transfer over, because like the power steering is in a different area, and we might have to add some vacuum canisters over here. But otherwise, I think like the radiator support is the same. The front bumper mounts, everything should be exactly the same from the E90 chassis. So it's going to be really easy to swap over, you know, front end components and such. Now, the reason that this car was listed for a good deal, if you didn't see, I made a community post under my channel. So if you want to see those, be sure to subscribe to the channel. But the original reason is it looks like this thing had a bad alternator and the car died and wouldn't start. But then the owner also told me that when it was driving on a good alternator, that the transmission had a horrible clunk, that when you came down to a stoplight, that it would clunk into gears and hesitate to go into them. So the transmission was bad, the alternator failed, and then someone tried to come by and buy it. But then when they tried to get it onto the trailer, it started overheating, and he said that it started leaking coolant from this spot right here. And as you can see, the valve cover gasket, that little red thing there, coolant coming out of there, smoke. I don't know if that's normal. So he did try to get it started, and then that happened and he reduced his price, and that's why we were able to get this whole chassis for under $1,000. So at under $1,000, I definitely couldn't turn down this opportunity. It's definitely worth more than that. Well, around that in parts, at least, I would think. And it's funny that we got this for such a good deal, just as we did this one, $2,200 for a 335, and under $1,000, about $700 for this 325. So we're gonna be about $3,000 into a swap, besides all the repairs and maintenance and stuff like that. Now, one thing that I did want to show you guys too is it did have some body damage. So these are little chips. It looks like BB gun marks and a little bit of a dent over here too. So I'm not sure what that stuff is, but I saw that on the ad, and it definitely indicates that the car would need some paint in this area. I wonder if you could maybe repair this and then blend into the door and not have to paint the other panels. And also here on the trunk, we have a nice little ding. It looks like that could be PDR, so maybe the trunk doesn't need to be painted, but we could have someone come by and pop this dent out. Over here on the driver's door, we have another chip, and it's even a little dented there, so have to get that looked at and see what we need to do there. And then the biggest thing, I think, is probably this fender. It's been dented, maybe sideswiped along with the front bumper. So the front bumper, I'm not sure if we could get by with repainting this, or maybe we'll do like an upgrade. I'm very curious as to what you guys think would be the best looking bumper for this build. I'm not sure if I want to do the LCI full front end conversion, because it's going to be really hard to find the LCI rear end. So might as well leave it all pre-LCI, kind of have it like more of a sleeper, you know, original style look. But as far as this fender, I'm not sure what to do about it. Maybe we could try popping the dent out. But if anything, we do have a good fender from the sedan car that we could use and paint. And so there are probably 3 different spots total: the bumper, the fender, and the door that would need to be addressed with paint. So that's an overall look at this car. And again, when you're trying to find good deals for these cars, you usually want to find them on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, and you want to look for cars that are advertised as being a mechanic special. Maybe they need some work, or they have higher mileage. Like I think that this car has 190,000 miles on it, which is a lot. But being a wagon, it really doesn't surprise me. It definitely does strike me as a car that you would do a lot of road trips on, for example. So the mileage comes with the age and the type of car that it is and how much driving was done. So definitely going to be a very cool build, taking the 335 motor and putting it in here. Remember, this 335 motor is also pretty high mileage, but I have full plans to do a bottom to top rebuild, and I want to try to get into the bearings and see how much bearing wear there is on a 200,000 mile N54 motor. I want to dyno the motor stock and see what power it makes. Basically, I want to get this car really dialed in the next couple weeks as far as how the engine runs, And then once the engine runs really well, I want to get straight into swapping it into this wagon here, as well as taking some of the other cool features like the iDrive and making it work in this car. Obviously the headlights we're going to use from the wagon. They're already on the car, they work great. So it did come with a lot of good parts as well, parts that we could have used to finish this car, but I feel like we'll leave them on the wagon and we'll keep that thing super mint. So everyone, like I said, I'm super excited for this build. I really want to hear some of your feedback and suggestions as to what direction we can take this build in. Personally, I want to stick with something more simple, reliable. I want to get it up to that 400, 500 crank horsepower number. Basic bolt-on mods just with the charge pipe intake, down pipes, and then doing the intercooler, I think would be really tasteful mods. I want to get this thing to kind of be like a street sleeper, get people's reactions in it, bring it to some car events and such, because I think that this car is just a very relatable build. Not everyone can afford to do an M drivetrain swap, especially with this chassis car, but the N54 is such a kind of cheap, reliable motor considering how much horsepower you get, and the E90 chassis especially have been dropping in value, although it has been really hard to find a wagon at a good deal like this. But I'm so glad that we're going to be doing this build now, and I can't wait to show you every detail of this journey, because I think this is going to be one of the first 335i wagon builds that's on YouTube, like in-depth videos doing all the work and such. And being that this car is all-wheel drive and we have to convert it to rear-wheel drive, I think that's also going to be a first as well, because I haven't seen any pictures or videos of how people solve the transmission issue. Some people have talked about it, but not a lot of people, I don't think, have conquered it. So I can't wait to get into these things and show you guys the solutions and our workarounds and all the problems that come along with this sort of build, because this is just part of the process. So I hope you guys are going to enjoy this video. Be sure to smash that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and you haven't yet. And as always, I hope everyone has an awesome day. We'll see you next time, folks.